Hi guys, it's Alex, founder of PostPulse. I decided to record this video because there are so many people who are still trying to integrate their Instagram API on their own. Not only Instagram API actually, but like it can be also Facebook API or Threads API or TikTok API. And there are a lot of discussions on the internet on Reddit forums because some people they already started doing it, they already realized that this is how, right? Some people still believe that this is not a big deal, right? And they started and then they have this sunken policy that they already spent a lot of time and they need to complete it now instead of using any ready to use, like ready to go solutions. And since there's these people will be there all the time, so there always will be anyone trying to do it themselves instead of like coming to PostPulse, for example, and integrating with us. I decided to record this video where I will give you all these surprises that we encountered in PostPulse while integrating with Instagram. So I will show you everything step by step from the like first user authorization to analytics and also to what to expect from your like production review and like all these surprises, all these tricks that we found out maybe will help you as well. Maybe some of you will maybe it will help someone to complete their integration process faster and then okay, that's fine. Maybe someone will just watch this video and realize how many things are behind the scenes that they didn't expect or didn't realize when they started, right? So, yeah, I think let's start. There will be no much editing from my side. I'm just recording it as it is. I'm not prepared. There is no script, and I will just go through the process. Maybe sometimes I will look into our code base just to remind myself, like how it should be implemented. Mainly, we will work with our dashboard, and I will show you like the sequence of calls that needs to be made and so on. So yeah, when we start, so I assume that if you're here, you probably already created your application, right? So you went to Meta for developers, and on Meta for developers, you signed up or signed in using your account, and yeah, you signed up using your account and then you created your application. And since we are talking about Instagram today, you selected this type of application, which is like manage messaging and content on Instagram and created your application. I already have one created, actually not one. I will use my existing application. I will use like our dev version of application. So we have like one version for production, which already passed all these ODs and everything, and one like clearly for dev where we can play with it. So not to mess with rate limits and everything of our production application. So once you created this application, you may be a little bit lost on what to do here because you probably like you can go to application settings, you can start like seeing different required actions, everything, and probably one thing is so you realize that first thing that you need to do is of course to authorize your first user. What does it mean to authorize? It means that again, when I don't know how technical you are, but like is maybe you're not so familiar with OAuth protocol and how it works in great details, but briefly to describe, right? You need to redirect user from your application to Instagram login page, and user will login in their Instagram account, and Instagram will redirect you back, and yeah, so like Instagram will redirect you back, and then you need to like on your backend side, you need to exchange authorization code for access token that you will use. And at this point, there is already a lot of surprises and a lot of things that you may not be aware of that, yeah, if you want to integrate these things successfully. So first of all, okay, so first thing you need to redirect from your application. Let's say this is like from like by application, I mean your it can be React application, maybe it's mobile application, iOS, Android, doesn't matter, right? So like from your application, you will redirect user to authorization URL. Now about this URL, right? So one thing is that when you try to navigate to this URL, if you will just use, let's say, www.instagram.com or authorize, the problem is that your call may be intercepted by like native mobile application. What I mean is that if user is if user tries to authorize your application from the same device where they already have Instagram application, it can happen that a mobile device will decide to intercept your call from browser and navigate user to mobile application. Bad thing and like kind of problem with it is that sometimes what we noticed is that in mobile applications, it can be stuck. So if authorization call comes to mobile application, nothing will happen and user will just land on their like main page of the application, a feed page or whatever you call it, with no other sign. So like they will be lost, like authorization call is completely broken here, right? So first problem that we encountered is how to make sure that our call doesn't come to mobile application and comes directly to the browser. So for iOS devices, the solution was to use not www.instagram.com, but API instagram.com. And the reason for this is because there is a dedicated page like that you can find. It's where you have like application association, Apple application association. So there is a separate page where Instagram lists down which exact URLs should be redirected, intercepted, and redirected to native application, or which URLs should go to the browser. And one thing that like we found ourselves is that you can use this like API Instagram, it will work. Other thing that is recommended is like to add like hashtag intent, I believe. But the problem is that it only works for iOS applications, iOS devices. On Android devices, it's even harder because there is no such thing as like any existing like extension or any magic query param that you can use that will prevent device from intercepting your request and navigating it to native mobile application. And that is the problem. And long story short, you should be like, you need to be prepared that the call will go from your, let's say, web browser with your web application to native mobile application. And then this native mobile Instagram application can actually drop the user to another browser tab, right? And why it is important, we will discuss in a minute when we will discuss state. But long story short, and we will come to this one more time, you need to be ready that the request will go to native application and from native application to another tab, right? And the what kind of like params that you need to pass mandatory. So you need to pass your client ID. And your first question would be, okay, where can I find it? And the first mistake that you can make is to go to Meta for developers and find this app ID, which comes with app secret. And you decide, yeah, this is client ID, client secret pair that I am about to use. And you will start, like, you will copy this value and you will try to use it. And it will not work because this is not the client ID that you need to use for Instagram. I don't know why to keep this app ID on the main tab here. It's very like misleading, to be honest, but in fact what you're looking for, you need to go to Instagram and go to setup with Instagram login here, and here you will find your Instagram app ID, and this is app ID and app secret that you are about to use, right? So this is your client ID. So don't be confused, not app ID, but Instagram app ID under API setup with Instagram plugin. Second is your redirect URL, and this is again, this is like URL of your application probably, where the user will be navigated back once they logged in Instagram. So they will complete their login and they will go back to your page, to this page. And this page should be ready to manage the next steps basically. Scope, again, like there are much more scope for Instagram, I believe, but be careful because in the final step, when you will apply for a view, you need to justify each and every scope, how you use it exactly, and you need to demonstrate it on the video. So don't add extra scopes that you don't use. I think that, of course, like you want to publish content, you need basic details to get information about your account. It's obvious you need content published, definitely. I think that managing sites would also be recommended if you want to fetch likes, shares and other metrics, right? Response type code, this is static. It's always like this by protocol itself, right? And state should be some random value that you will compare on response. And this is where you need to be ready and you need to be prepared that your request will go to another tab. So one big mistake that we made in the beginning was that, okay, so what we did was we generated some state on our web application and we store the state in local storage. And when we receive callback from Instagram, we compare the state with something that we have in our local storage. And the problem is that if your call was intercepted, it went to native Android application, and native Android application drops it to another browser tab. User will authorize in that tab, and they will redirect to your page. Your page will try to find state in local storage. It will not work because obviously it's another tab or another browser. It can happen, right? So whatever can happen, you need to be ready. That's why our recommendation, what I can recommend, I think this is proper way to do. It's just that in the very beginning we did it maybe in a fast way, but the proper way to do it is probably to generate these things on your backend. So first thing that we do now today is we call our backend actually to generate the whole authorization call with all the params, so that backend becomes the only source of truth when it comes to our client ID or scopes or code, and our backend generates state and also keeps the state in Redis because it's also distributed, so we have multiple backend instances. That's why state is stored in Redis, but you can store it in your database, right? And you generate state on your backend and you save it on your database or any other storage on your backend. Then this call comes to Instagram, and Instagram again will show the login page to the user and also consent screen, and will navigate back. One last thing to mention here probably is that it's probably matter of choice. Do you want your users to log in each time you navigate them to Instagram page or not? One thing that can happen is that maybe your users are already logged in Instagram on their browser, and maybe when you make this call, you want to skip login basically, right? And just proceed with consent screen. It should be user friendly because many people, they don't remember their Instagram login and password, to be honest. And if it's already automatically authorized for them, it's nice, right? For some people, it was actually a problem because they wanted to connect multiple Instagram accounts and they didn't get how to do it because basically each time they clicked Instagram in our application, we navigated to Instagram, which was pre-authorized, and they were confused how to authorize another account basically, right? And we had to tell them that, okay, first open browser, open Instagram page, and log out, log in with another account, then go back to PostPulse, you can click, and it will also pre-authorize your new account here. There is one trick, and it's possible to force Instagram to reauth each time. There is another request param that you can add here to your client ID, redirect URL, state, response time. There's one more thing. It's called, if I'm not mistaken, force reauth or something like this. Something like force reauth true, but to be honest, it's better to find it in documentation, but something like this, it's possible. If you pass this flag, it will show login page each time. But there is one thing that you should be prepared to. To be honest, the Instagram application doesn't manage authorization flow really well when it comes to fresh login. They somehow lose the chain of redirects and callbacks and so on. I don't know what happens exactly, but what we notice is that if we redirect to Instagram and the user is not pre-authorized in Instagram in this browser, and they need to enter their login and password, the login in application, and most of the time Instagram just show them main page again without showing them like consent screen and redirecting them back, which is expected for authorization flow. So somehow it looks like after fresh login, Instagram somehow forgets that it's authorization flow and actually it was from PostPulse and they need to redirect it back to PostPulse. So they just show main page of Instagram, that's it. And user is confused and like they need to go back to PostPulse and start from the scratch, click on Instagram so that we go to Instagram, which is now pre-authorized, and then they will be navigated back and their account will be connected. That we will discuss in a second how to like on the next steps, right? But this is very confusing, to be honest, and it's very bad for users, and that's why like be prepared. And our decision was not to use force reauth, so it's better to explain few users who want to connect multiple Instagram accounts how to do it rather than being blocked basically for 99% of the users who just like navigated to Instagram, entered their login and password, and that's nothing. And they just see the main page. That's it, right? So let's say you successfully called Instagram with all these details. And in response, after successful login, authorization, consent screen, Instagram will redirect back to your application with state and code. Um, One thing you need to compare state, it should be the same state for security reasons. Again, as we recommend, since we recommend that you keep it on your backend, so probably all this will count to your backend application. Now you need to compare your state, as I mentioned. Now, what to do with code, right? Now from your backend, you need to do a second call to Instagram, and this is this API instagram.com, and this is your access token. This is the first call that you need to make, and what you need to pass, this is something like, let me just copy and paste. There will be like a little bit of Java code, but I think no one will be just like shocked or something like this. Yeah, so like when it comes to headers, so you need to mention that this is content type, like application form basically. And now the form itself, this is like form data, and in form data, this is what you need to pass, right? So let's see. First of all, this is your code from the response from the first step. This is clear, I think. Grant type, it's like grant type is actually all the time. It should be the same. It's like authorization code. So it's standard from the protocol perspective. It's the same. Client ID, again the same. Like redirect URI, it's this redirect URI should match also. And client secret, again, like client secret, we are talking about this Instagram app secret that you need to copy from here, right? So you will make this call, and in response you will have kind of like basic OAuth protocol response, right? So basic OAuth protocol response usually implies fields like access token, refresh token, expires in. There can be some like other values, but the surprise is that, so usually what you expect for like how it works on other platforms is that we receive like access token and refresh token, because usually we also request offline access, and this is like a usual scope if you want your application to have refresh token so that you can make requests later without reauthorization flow again. But it doesn't work for Instagram, so there is no refresh token, first of all. And there is only access token, which is short-lived, right? And by short-lived, what I mean is that it only it's only a few, I don't remember, maybe like 24 hours, maybe less, or a few hours, something like this. Long story short, the first question that you may ask is that, okay, how to the hell will I manage to post something for my user if I only have short-lived access token? Does it mean that I need to do all this stuff and ask them to reauthorize from our application over and over again? And again, there is nothing. You try to find something in protocol itself. Maybe there is some like magic trick apart from offline access scope that you don't know about. Maybe there is some like again magic query that you need to pass so that refresh token will come. But no, actually, so you will only have access token, and this is your first problem because Instagram, not only Instagram, but also other platforms from Meta like Facebook and Threads, they also follow the same pattern. But today we discuss Instagram. Is that there is a separate endpoint. Now it comes out of the scope of standard OAuth protocol, I believe, but there is like a second endpoint that can help you to exchange your short-lived token for a long-lived access token. So for this, you need to call yeah, so I think this is obvious that this is like post, of course, but let me just mention it here, just in case, right? And this also, just to not to confuse, this is actually get request. So this is access token, where grant type Instagram exchange token, and client secret. This is your client secret, you got it. And access token, which is your access token from the first step. Okay, so this is what you got from the first one. Now, in response, you will again receive only access token. But the good thing is that your new access token will last for 60 days. And this is like lives for like 60 days, right? So you can use it for 60 days. But a good thing is that you can also refresh it. But you can refresh it before it expires. So some like before 60 days and not less than 24 hours. So at least one day needs to pass. Then before 60 days expires, somewhere in this range, after 24 hours, you can also try to refresh this token. This is what we do. So like just in case we don't wait for 60 days, because who knows when will be the next chance for us to do it, right? So like if we are doing something for the user, for example, we publish something and it's already more than one day, just to be on the safe side, we try to refresh access token, and this is how it goes. So refresh access token, grant type, access token from your access token. In response, you again will have access token that is valid for 60 days that you can then reuse, right? So one thing also to mention here is that this is your authorization flow basically, right? So now you have, in response, you will have access token that you need to store securely, obviously, and also you can now use for any other HTTP calls that we will discuss, right? So for example, I think first thing that we try to do is, of course, try to fetch some basic details because in PostPulse, like once you authorize your application and you are redirected back, we try to show you the card and we try to show you like your username, your avatar, so that this account was connected. So this is your avatar, this is your username, this account has been connected, right? For this, we call like API to get basic details. This is get API. Okay, so this is like /me. And this is like fields and access token. This is your access token from previous steps. And this is fields that we fetch. So for example, profile picture URL, and this is your access token from previous steps. And this is fields that we fetch. So for example, profile picture URL, and this is your access token from previous steps. And this is fields that we fetch. So for example, profile picture URL, and this is your access token from previous steps. And this is fields that we fetch. So for example, profile picture URL, and this is your access token from previous steps. And this is like biography, username, name, that's it, right? And also then we store this information in database, right? One thing here is, we will come back to this in a second. So here we have profile picture, and one question that we will discuss is how to make sure that profile picture is actually relevant, right? Not so how often do we refresh profile page, let's say, right? But before we come to this, to complete with authorization flow itself, to complete this part, one more thing maybe to mention, right? Because it's not obvious. When you started working on your integration, which users can basically try to authorize your application, right? So like how it will work, because if you will just use this app ID and top secret and you will try, if you I will ask your like friends to try your application, it will not work, obviously, right? Because unless you passed all these audits, which is the craziest part that like we will discuss in the end of this video probably, but while you are still developing your application, you need to explicitly add people who should be able to test your application, right? And for this you have app roles, you need to go to roles, and here you need to add people, and you need to add people as Instagram testers, and you need to add their like usernames. Okay. Um, the question that, to be honest, I don't quite remember. Maybe I'm now like, I don't want to lie to you. You will notice. I don't remember if these people they should also have this Facebook Meta for Developers account, because obviously this is Facebook account that you are logged in, but you need to be like at least signed up in Meta for Developers application, right? Which is kind of maybe separate database or separate flag for user database in Meta database. I don't know, but maybe I'm now confusing it with TikTok a little bit, because to be honest, in PostPulse we have 9 social media platforms, and it was a while ago when we first integrated all this stuff. So maybe I'm confusing it now, but matter of fact, if you will try to do what I'm describing now and it doesn't work, the app doesn't appear in Instagram for this user, maybe there is like good chances that this user should also be signed up in Meta for Developers, right? So how it works, you mention username here and you add this user, and once you add this user should also explicitly add accept their invitation in their application, right? What they mention is, I will just go to the application and settings here. And in settings, you need to go to website permissions, where you need to go to apps and websites. And in these apps and websites, you have tester invites. And one more thing, if I'm not mistaken, this tab is not visible from mobile application. This is crazy, but I don't remember. But there was something like this. This tester invites, this tab may not be visible from mobile application. So make sure your tester go to desktop version and like go here in apps and websites, find this tester invites tab, and here you need to accept this invitation from your application, right? Only once, so you invite them from your site in your app, and this test user should accept your invitation from their Instagram application. And once this is done, they should be able to authorize your application using this flow. Okay, so I think now this is everything that I wanted to mention about authorization itself, right? And well, it's already like 30 minutes past, and I haven't even started talking about publishing itself, right? But there are so many surprises already here that like it's all everything that I share. It's kind of like time that I spent on this, right, while building PostPulse. So maybe it will help someone. Let's see. Okay, regarding this profile picture itself, right? So once we started working with PostPulse, we noticed that um, you add cart, profile cart itself, and everything looks smooth, right? We show like avatar URL, then we show like username, everything. Then after some time, we notice that like profile URL picture, like picture URL doesn't work anymore. There is some kind of like error when we try to fetch this image from this URL. This is public URL, but it doesn't work anymore, right? So we started investigating what's like, okay, how this URL, what kind of URLs do we have here actually? And we found out that these profile URLs, they are actually, for some applications, they are um, pre-signed URLs, right? So again, um, if you are familiar with something like S3 storages or like pre-signed URL. So basically, this is like pre-signed. So basically, profile picture is stored securely, and you don't have just access to their file storage to get their image. But they kind of like to explain what does pre-signed URL mean. They generate time-based URL that will give you time-based access to this file in their secure storage. So with this URL, you can fetch this file, but only for some period of time, right? And after this time, you probably need to refresh, and this is good time to recall, like call again this API and like refetch basic details, and this is how you will refresh your profile picture URL. And how to understand um, when you need to refresh and so on. So this is how we understand. We store the avatar expiry date, and how we calculate the expiry date is basically okay. Let me just avatar expiry date, and for Instagram, how we calculate it. Okay, so for Instagram, in your URL that you will receive, so your profile picture URL, it will look somehow like there will be like long URL, and also you will have like, okay, there will be some I don't know, Instagram, this is not the real like URL that they have, and then there will be like your file png, and then there will be like a lot of like signature, blah blah blah, and also like and something like this, and like and many like requests. First it will be like long URL, right? But in this URL you will have this param, which is called OE, okay? And this OE will store hexadecimal value of your expiry date of this URL, right? So this is like hex expiry, so it's like hexadecimal value of expiry date, which is kind of like long value, or like, I don't know, int value, long value, of kind of like seconds since epoch start, I believe. And so yeah, basically this is, you need to first from hexadecimal, you need to parse it to decimal value. And then this is like your decimal value, which is yeah, and then this like this decimal value, you need to convert to local date time, because this is like epoch seconds. So again, like first you need to it will be hexadecimal hex. So first you need to convert hex to decimal using your like programming language, right? So for example, for me in Java, it would be something like this: long parse long hex expiry. Okay, so this is your value. And once you converted it to decimal, then from decimal you probably need to convert it to instant, right, or timestamp, whatever. And this decimal, it will be epoch seconds. So for me, for example, in Java, it looks like this. Okay, so It looks like this. Okay, so this is your epoch, and this is how you convert, and this is how you understand when your profile URL will expire based on like param inside of your profile URL itself. Okay, so now with this part, I think we are done with authorization and basic account details, and we can move back to the main part, which is publishing itself. Okay. So for the publishing, one thing is like one thing to mention. So of course, there are like three types of publications. There are like there's feed, right? This is reels, and this is your story, right? Story. So feed, it can be like up to 10 images, or it can be like also video, like up to 10 media files, basically, right? Interesting fact is that as per today, June 13th, official Instagram application supports now 20 media files in your feed, what they call like carousel, right? So in your carousel, you can have up to 20 media files. But for those who try to integrate Instagram API, we only have access to publish up to 10 media still, right? And this is something that is like still there. This is, I believe, some kind of like marketing move or strategic move where your API capabilities are basically limited compared to your mobile application. So I think it was done intentional, not because they don't want to do it. Maybe they also don't want to do it, basically. But I think it's a strategical move, and they strategically restrict your access, what you can do with API, basically, right? Now so the idea of publishing like anything in Instagram is you first create so-called container with media, and then you publish this container. Okay, so first you upload your media files to Instagram, you create it as the container. If this is Carousel, you create multiple containers and then combine it in one big container of Carousel. If it's just like Reels or something like this, you just publish it like as it is, and then you publish your container as the publication, right? But one thing that we recommend is that, to be honest, like we sometimes API can be a little bit unstable or something like this. So errors can happen, right? And sometimes people on forums, not to say that this is like our opinion, not to have any legal issues or something like this. Let's say you may find on Facebook forums that the people complain that the API for content creation, for Reels or something like this, like publishing API itself, basically, it's a little bit unstable, or like their media files are stuck, right? We will discuss about like state machine of these containers in a bit, but what I want to say is that, of course, in this video, we don't go into like scheduling part and scheduling machine of PostPulse, because this is something that you are building on your own. Maybe you don't have scheduling in your application. Maybe you want to publish it immediately. But what we would like what we can recommend is like kind of do schedule your media files. It's better for you because since the API can go down from time to time, it's better for your users if you start creating all the containers in advance, right? What I mean is that what we do. So basically, we will now discuss the states of these containers, but these containers, they live for 24 hours, right? And what we try to do is that if we have the like publication that should be published in less than 24 hours, and we see that like we haven't created container yet, we start creating this container calling the API in advance, so that when it comes to publishing part, we only publish pre-created containers. So we start trying in advance, because if there are any errors, because of like downtimes or like media is stuck, it's better like to start again. We have like plenty of time. We have 24 hours with some like step, like 30-minute step, when we try to recreate this container if it's failing or something like this, right? Because one more thing is that your user, if you try to do it just in time and you clicked publish, your user may expect that it will be published immediately. But this container creation, this container creation can take time actually, and it can happen that your user should wait for, I don't know, 5 minutes before you will publish, and they will be frustrated because you told them that you published, but or it's in progress, but it's in progress for 5 minutes, and they don't know what to do because it's kind of a lot nowadays to wait for 5 minutes. So it's better to prepare containers before you try to do something, right? And okay, so let's go one by one. So how we consider this? So what kind of logic do we have when it comes to do posting, right? So when we start posting, first thing that we try to understand is how many media files, how many media files do we have, right? So if we have only one media file, so this is our first case, right? So we have, let's say, only one media file to publish, right? If this is like single media, then we create single media container. This is like first step, right? So this is one second, just a second. Okay, so I want to find a base URL basically. Okay, so web client, this is our web client. So anywhere, so this is our base URL. We will start adding details here. So of course you need to add bearer with your access token, right? Oh, sorry, not bearer, but it's like bearer authorization. So authorization header, of course, with your bearer access token that we have just discussed, right? Better to use long-lived token. And as usual, it will be JSON, right? Content type will be application JSON, right? Application JSON, right? So this is your content type, and now let's discuss the single media that we try to publish, right? So when it comes to single media, blah, 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 like this. Okay, so first, where do we call? Okay, so we call it version 22, user ID, and media. Okay, so where this user ID comes from, this is because we called get basic details. So from our basic details, we have this like user ID in response fields that we requested. So this user ID will go here in your request. So this is like user ID media, and this is of course a post request, because we will have also like our request body itself. Now to discuss the request body, right? Request body depends on whether it's image or it's video, because you can publish one image, you can publish one video, right? So video. Okay. So if you publish a video, the first thing that you need to have is to get the public, so first it's image URL, right? So let me just copy this as your image URL. And this should be like your public URL. It should be public URL of your image. It can be your pre-signed. Again, you can use the same principle as they do, so you can also use pre-signed get URL, right? But the important part is that like it should be, of course, ideally, like, of course, it should be associated with your business. So I mean, if this is like PostPulse, this is kind of like uh, ideally it should be also with the same domain, but it's not mandatory. So if you have like S3 storage and you can generate the pre-signed URL, then it's fine basically, right? So but still, like, one thing to mention here is that the this so like first thing to like okay so first thing to mention, um the content type, accepted content types, right? um First thing first, in this like public image, so let's just make the site node here, and let's talk about like, okay, so this is image, let's talk about content type. The problem is that so what is accepted? So ideally, they accept like your users may use like JPEG or PNG. They you work with like JPEG extensions, right? And the issue is that, okay, so the problem is that if you have the PNG file, you need to probably convert it to JPEG or ask your users to upload only JPEG files, but probably it's not the best way. So probably you can convert some image files on your own. But again, like PNG files, they cause issues. That's why like internally we convert other image types, for example, PNG. We convert PNG files to JPEG files automatically so that we don't disturb our users. But again, like officially, JPEG extensions, this is what you need, right? So the okay, so first thing is our public URL of the image. Second is depending on the type. So if it's story, you need to set media types, media type stories. This is if you publish it as a story. If this is not a story, then you may need to add captions, which is like text that will appear, right? Like under in your post, right? The text of your post. So then you need to add captions here. This your text, right? This like media type or captions, I would say they are exclusive. So either it's story. If it's story, there is no place for caption, because like there is no caption for stories, right? If it's if you have, so then you need to set your media type. So if either it's media type stories, probably if it's any other just fits, you don't need to set anything here. Then you can just add your captions, right? So this is your image request. For video request, this is a little bit more tricky because for image, basically we understand that it can be either story or it can be feed, right? For video, there are three types. It can be feed, a single, no, sorry, it can also be story or reels, right? The matter of fact is that you cannot publish a single video to feed. It's now like deprecated. So you should use Reels. Okay, we will discuss this now. So first thing first, it's your like video URL, of course. It's kind of the same. It can be like pre-signed, or matter of fact, it should be public, so they should be able to download video from your URL, right? So first thing first is your video URL. Second is again, if it's stories, so your publication type or your media type should be stories. This is one thing. So then it's story. If it's not a story, so if it's story, then that's it, right? So you have either story, or you may have other. So if it's not story, then it's probably Reels, media type Reels. Now here, important thing, right, that I want to mention is in official documentation of Graph API, there's still a media type that is mentioned. It's called video. So you may still find it in documentation, right? Media type video. In fact, this one is deprecated and your post will fail if you will try to pass it. It will tell you that this is deprecated, you should use Rails. But in documentation, you may still find it, to be honest. This is what I saw, and this is what, again, we learned in a hard way, that it's in documentation, it can be video, but in fact, it can be like, if it's single video, already it's only Reels, right? There is no such thing as like separate feed post. You publish it as the Reels mandatory, and then it will also appear, right? For Reels images, you may also want to have the cover image. So for Reels, if it's Reels, you may also have cover URL, which is like public URL, okay? So again, cover URL doesn't make sense for stories. It makes sense only for Reels. It should be a public image that you want to use as the cover of your Reels video, okay? So this is your request overall. So again, like we have image, video URL, we have media type for stories especially, or for Reels, and also for Reels, we may have cover URL that we want to use. Okay, so this is our request in case. This is how we proceed if we have one media file. Okay, so in from the user. Now, if we have more than one media file, so we have many video files, how we manage this? So this is a little bit tricky because this is where we want to bring more. We want to make our users' life easier because, to be honest, here we need to ask, is it story or not? Why? Because see, from Instagram perspective, story, it's always single media post itself. But for PostPulse users, what we notice, they don't want to schedule separate stories. I think in social media marketing there is such thing as like storyline or storytelling, storyline. I don't know. So basically, they have like few stories with the same, it can be maybe like PDF pages or something like this, or let's say series of images with the same topic, with like opening story, then like main story, and then like in the end there is some hook or like call to action or something like this. So basically they publish 3, 4, 5 stories one by one immediately as one pack, as one pack of stories basically, right? And for users, it's kind of like one publication, right? But for Instagram, it's separate publication, so you need to manage it internally. So for users, we allow them to schedule one publication, 2 stories with multiple images, or not necessarily images, image, video, doesn't matter. So we allow them to schedule it as the one publication because for them it sounds like their storyline that they schedule. But internally, we need to understand if it's story, you go back to here and one by one. So like for each image, like for each media file that you have in this like pack for stories, you basically schedule them like separate image or video one by one. Okay. So if it's not a story, then we are talking about carousel, right? So this is our feed with up to 10 media files, okay? Then if it's like part of Carousel, I don't know if I pronounce it properly, but as you like already noticed, I'm not a native speaker, so I try my best, right? So yeah, if we talk about like, okay, if we prepare the carousel for our feed, first thing first, we need to prepare each media for this like carousel to be part of the carousel itself. And what we have is we have again each item here will be image URL or video URL. This is first. If this is like again, if it's image URL and all of them anyway in your request, you will have is carousel item true. Then you will have image URL or video URL with your public URL. And if this is your, if this is like is carousel item true, then you have also image URL, you have video URL, and also for video URL, you need to mention video type video. So this is where from the documentation, this is like in this part, it's not deprecated, so you need to still use video here. This is like proper one, but don't be confused and don't use like media type video in other, like in for example for Reels, it will be a big mistake and you will have failing request, right? So okay, media type video here. If it's video URL, okay, so image URL, or you have video URL, and also you should then add media type video. Okay, so either two fields or either three fields. So like it's either is carousel item true image URL, or it can be is carousel item true media type video and then your video URL. Okay, and you constructed this request, then you call your like media, the same media here. Okay, so the same post as the carousel itself. Now in basically in response, like whenever you call this, so the here and also here, in response to this call, you will receive ID, which is ID of this container. It's not yet ID of your post, it's ID of your container, right? So this is like response. You will have only one field, which is like ID with your container ID. Now, why it's important for like carousels itself? Because for carousels, you prepare this, you do this HTTP call for each item, right? So for example, we have 10 images or like, yeah, 10 media files. I will make 10 calls to upload all these media files to prepare this carousel itself, right? In response, I will have this ID. And once I have all of this, once I have it ready, I need to combine all of this to make the final container for carousel itself, right? Okay, so how to make this carousel request? We will have the same again, like post media. So let's mention here that we will just repeat it. Then we need to make the call to make the carousel request. Okay, so this is again our media. Then in our media type we will mention Carousel itself. Then here we will have like caption. This is your text of the post. And then you need to have children, which is the string comma separated children, like identifiers of all your containers that you created before. So it will be like this. It will be string with ID1, ID2, ID3, and so on, like this. Okay. So again, this is not the like array of IDs or something like this. This is basically string. So first thing first, you repeat all these IDs, you get this in response. You need to combine it in one string, comma separated, and when you have it combined, comma separated, then you can do this, like make carousel container, right? In response, you will again get the same ID, but this will be now your ID of your final container, which is your carousel, right? Now, important thing is that once you do this, right, once you create the container, each time you need to next as the like next step. So once you created the container, our next step would be wait for container to be ready. Okay, so what do I mean here, right? So like our next step, once it's ready, we will go and publish it, right? It will be our last step to publish something. But you can publish only something that is in ready state. So your container with media file should be processed. This is where okay, so we will discuss this now. So you take your ID and you call, so from all these like flows, and most importantly, you need to call this for each container that you prepare. So actually, it's not that simple, because once you create carousel item, the feed, like, let me call it like feed item. Once you created feed item, or let's say you created 10 feed items, right? So you called this API to create 10 containers. You need to wait for 10 containers to be ready so that you can go back and create carousel container, which should then be ready so that you can publish it then. Okay, so this waiting for container can take time. That's what I mentioned. If you don't want your users to wait for like 5 minutes or who knows, because sometimes it can go down. Sometimes people on forums, they reported that their containers were stuck in progress state for a few hours. This can happen, right? That's why we decided that we will start preparing containers. Like, we don't start 24 hours because again it's like on the edge, because like we cannot start immediately 24 hours because maybe then it will be expired, who knows. So not to mess with it, we play safe. So we start around like 16 hours before the actual publication, so that if it's down for 3 or 5 hours, it's not down, but you will see now from the states, it will stuck, it will, so API will return you in progress state for like few hours, right? It can happen. You don't want to frustrate your customers. That's why we start preparing in advance. We recommend you to do the same. If your users want to publish it just in time right now, click button and publish. Well, manage their expectations, because it will work usually, because of course it's huge organization doing pretty well, and of course it can work, but still it will take some time to be published. Okay, it also depends on the size of your media file. If you're trying to publish something huge, it will take time. It will take time for you to download, for you to upload, for them to process, because I think on this step, when they wait for container, it's not only about downloading your media file from URL and uploading to their file storage. But it's also about some integrity checks. I think they also check if your like file is valid. I think they maybe scan for viruses. I don't know. Maybe they check for aspect ratio. And this is okay. So media validation, it's like a separate topic that we need to cover probably, right? So yeah, but this is what happens here, I think, and this is why it can take time from their side, right? So how do we wait for this container, basically? Okay, so for this we call get container status. Okay, so this is our here. This is get, and this is your container ID. Okay, so let me double check this, but I just so that I don't mess with anything, but I think this is like, okay, so client, there is no v22 or something like this. I think it's just, yeah, so like graph instagram.com and then immediately your like slash and get container status. Yeah, so like slash and container ID, okay? So in response, you will have your ID, status code, and status. Okay, so ID, status code, and status. Okay. Now the interesting part. Okay. So the status code can be one of this. Expired, finished, in progress, published. Okay. So expired is like if you try to call it for container that is like more than 24 hours, but it was not published. So that's why you should be careful, because if you will create container, if you will try to publish it after 24 hours, then like of course it will be expired. So no, it will not work. So this is expired. Published, of course, if it's already published, I mean, there's already post for this, right? So this is not interesting for us probably, right? What is interesting for us, it's of course in progress, finished, and error. Okay, so again, finished, also easy because from finished, we go straight to the publishing, okay? Expired, published, again, we assume this should never happen, right? This is something like something broken in your logic because it should not happen in number flow, right? So now in progress and error. In progress, of course, you understand what you need to do. In case of in progress, you just like, I don't know, wait for another something and then like retry again, right? Retry the same status code. And now it's up to your architecture and how you will manage this, because again, as I mentioned, it can be in progress for quite a long time, better not to block your application, so it should be managed somehow, async way, or like, I don't know. So this is up to your architecture basically at this point. So in progress, clear. Now I want to mention like what to do with errors, because in case of errors, first thing that you may want to do is to understand what actually happened from the status. Okay, so ideally, well, the what is mentioned in their documentation is that you will receive proper status code that will tell you what happened and how to manage. So there is a dictionary. I mean, I can give you an example somewhere here, but you need to find it in documentation also. So this is the dictionary of their errors. And so this is your code that you are expected to receive. And then from this code, you may understand. So this is what is expected to be here in this status. Okay, so this status supposed to be one of these values, and from these values you can understand what to show to your customer, and also you can understand is it like retriable or not. So basically, should you retry after some time the whole process or not, basically. Okay, so in fact, what we noticed is that it's not always what comes from the API. So it's not true, right? So what usually happens is that uh, usually you receive not even this like unknown upload request. Usually you receive just status with value error, also error. So it's just like error itself, right? Without any proper status code. This is something that we noticed from our experience, right? And if it's not the numeric value, of course you cannot understand what happened and you don't know how to react on this. So probably you want to abort this process because basically something else has happened. And from our experience, there can be multiple reasons. Again, it can be because of some like minor outages on their side. It can be also because of actually some validation, media validation error. So even if there is something wrong with media, it doesn't mean that you will always receive meaningful error message which will mention, for example, invalid image aspect. Okay, this one can actually, I think I saw this sometimes, like a few times, so maybe this one can happen, right? But sometimes something wrong is with video file. Again, we will discuss media validation separately probably. And instead of meaningful error message, it will just give you error, and then like you don't know what to do with this. Okay, so be ready. Ideally, so if you have status code error, you will have status which is supposed to be numeric, which will refer to particular error reason that you can maybe retry, maybe just show to the customer because it's not retriable, right? But be ready that sometimes the status will be just status, okay? So it will be just error and that's it, without any information, okay? So this is something that you should be ready to. And again, as I mentioned, it can be stuck in this in progress status for some time actually, right? One thing also, if I'm like what I mentioned is that we are preparing containers in advance, right? This is what we try to do. And when we prepare this, like, let's say we have case with carousel post for feed, right? And let's say we have 10 images. We created containers for them, okay? And then we created carousel container. So all these 10 images got status finished, okay? So maybe from finished, actually, it's actually would be fair to show it like this. So in case of carousel, it can go from finished for media file to actually this call, right? So we created carousel then as the next one, and we waiting for its status. And for example, carousel itself failed with error. One thing is that you may assume that, okay, can I just use old carousel IDs and recreate the new carousel? Because these containers, they are fine, right? They are like finished. So nothing is wrong with this media file. Can I just use the same media files, the same container IDs for the new carousel? Because old one failed, right? Can I retry this request with the same carousel ID? No. If your carousel this call failed and you want to retry for your user, you need to retry from scratch. So recreate new containers for all media items in your carousel. Okay. So this is one thing also important to mention. And publish. Okay. So the last step, once we done everything, I think it's time for publishing, and this is how we do it. Basically, this is the same post request, but instead of media, we just have media publish. Okay, so this is our media publish. Now, what we mentioned in request is our ID. Okay, it's called in request, it's called creation ID. And this is our like ID from previous step. If it's a single media, it will be this ID, right? If it's carousel, it will be ID of your carousel, which, and all this, in all cases, it should be already in finished state. So your container is in finished state. So you just call media publish with this creation ID. And I think this creation ID is already the small step from Instagram perspective, so it can be usually fast to publish something. And that's why if you manage to create containers and Instagram processed your media files and they're in finished status, like creating in something, it's already a simple thing. That's why we recommend creating all containers in advance if possible, right? And that's it basically. So once you publish, this is your, so once you published your container, in response you will also get ID, and this will be the ID of your post. Okay, and that's it. So this is it about publishing, right? And then I think just to like complete all this story, let's say after some time you want to find the information about how your post is performing. So if you want to get this application insights, the problem is that you need to know which type of publication is it, because your metrics available can be different for like feed, for story, and for reels. Okay, so if you know your type, so if you know the type of your post itself, this is perfect, I think, right? If you don't know which type is it due to XYZ reason, so you can always call later. So first thing first, it's just maybe a couple of useful APIs for you, and yeah. Okay, so you can use your post ID here. And you also need to mention where fields and also your access token. Again, you don't need to you don't need all these fields. I think what you need is like media type, media product. All these fields that are request, maybe you don't need timestamp. You can actually, since this is Graph API, so like I don't know if you're aware of like how GraphQL is working or not, so you can go and request some like sub values from sub entities from your post, for example, inside metrics. But what I wanted to mention is that caption, media type, media product, this is what you want to fetch from this like post details. Why? Because your next thing is by your media product type, you can get, if it's like media product type, you will get whether it's story or it's real, because media type is like video or not video, but your like video is not enough because you also want to distinguish between like story or reels, right? And then depending on this, because depending on your product type, you can also fetch different metrics. Why it's not the same list? Because again, some metrics, they are not applicable to, for example, to story. So again, for feed, you have shares, you can comments, like, total interactions, profile visits. For reels, you have shares, comments, likes, total interactions, but I think profile visits are not available here. Story, you have this, shares, total interactions, profile visits, reach, views, but not likes, right? So why it's important? You need to mention correct list of your metrics. You cannot use the same list for all, because if you will try to get basically, so like our next step is just get, this is our graph Instagram, then this is our post, ID, and then insights, and then request your metrics that you want to get. This is your like list of comma separated metrics that you want to get, and there's your also access token, right? So my point is that if you will pass, for example, likes for story, the API will not skip this as not relevant metric. It will actually throw error that it cannot get this particular bad request because you cannot get likes for story, for example. So be careful, because this is like you need to prepare accurate list of metrics that you want to fetch for particular type, right? So whether it's like story, reels, or feed. So be careful with this list. Okay. So okay, I think now it's time to talk about media validation. Okay, and for this, let me just open our list. So you can find list of media validations like on official document. The point is that what we noticed is that not all these not all these rules are actually kind of like mandatory to exercise, right? So of course you cannot publish more than 10 media files to Carousel. This is fine. Of course there should be some aspect ratio itself, right? There is like accepted media types. PNG is not accepted. As I mentioned, this is something that we convert for our users, but you should use only JPEG if you want to go to Instagram directly without any conversions, right? So media size, media like format, size, aspect ratio, of course this is mandatory. Of course, like captions, like not more than number of characters, this is also like mandatory. I'm not sure about the number of like characters. Actually, we noticed we had problem with, I don't remember, either it was threads or it was X. I think it was threads, when the number of characters that they mentioned, it was actually not a number of characters, but number of bytes. Because if you write in Latin letters, then it will be this number, right? But if you write with some Cyrillic letters, or I don't know, some like Chinese hieroglyphs or something like this, it's less than this. Or if you use emojis, it's less than this number, and they are not accurate in their description, because in documentation they mention characters, but this is not characters. Actually, they mentioned they meant bytes probably. So like you got my point, right? So they counted only Latin letters, and they told that this is how much you can post, but no, your emoji will not count as one character here. Okay. So don't be confused. I don't know. I think it was with threads. That's why I mentioned it, because I think the same can happen with Instagram. But to be honest, we never reached that limit of 2,200 characters. So that someone tries to publish more than this, right? Or like something around this with non-Latin letters. That's why I don't know. But since this issue happened with threads, maybe it can happen with Instagram. But my point here was not to mention like characters, aspect ratio. This is obvious. Some rules that they mentioned, they are very, very technical in like audio codecs, video codecs, move atom byte in video file, and so on, right? So, and this is like very technical, I think, right? So like, let me find like Reels video requirements and Instagram. Okay, so the Instagram ads, no, okay, so awareness video ad. So this is video ad. The what I want to find is, okay, so Instagram Reels publish API. Okay, so it will be mentioned in the API itself, I think, right? So we publish content, and here in publish content we will see requirements for video, and I will show you. Some of them are very technical, but what we found from like our experience is that not all these requirements are kind of mandatory. So maybe something, maybe I mean, sharing to feed, sharing to stories, maybe like this. Maybe they just auto manage some of these requirements, right? So for example, yeah, so maybe some of this they manage themselves. maybe something they cannot manage. That's why they restrict it on your API level itself, right? See, it's kind of like not easy. It's kind of like not easy to find something here in their documentation, Instagram platform. And now, yeah, so I want API itself. See, okay, so I will show you in a second, but this kind of like from their technical requirements, what we found is mandatory itself is video should have no more than 1920 horizontal pixels. Video should have bitrate of 25 megabytes or less. These two kind of technical stuff you can still manage, you can still check it with you can still migration business login. Okay, so you can still manage to check it with FFmpeg, FFmpeg library, right, for videos. So you can still manage to do it, and you can check it. But again, like it takes time. It does like we don't know if you want to publish it, like if you want to do it or not. And the wait 1 second, I cannot publish content, welcome messaging conversions. So but again, like they mention in their page many different technical things. Not all of this you need actually. Container publishing status, publish the containers, Reels post. Don't know where is it now. Anyway, so this is okay. So let me just use it as the ads now, right? So let me promote our website. So this is a list of requirements that we found that if you will violate it, it will actually fail, right? So there is something mentioned about like MOV flag. So in MP4 videos, or like not only MP4, so in video files, there is like some item like by that should be in like MOV that should be in the start of the video, but for example sometimes it can be in the middle or in the end of the video. From our experience, it's not something that like can break the publishing. So Instagram, it's mentioned in their documentation actually. That's why I want to find it, because it is mentioned, right? And we first we decided, okay, so like, does it mean that you also need to restrict it, right? But no, in fact, no, because even with violation of this rule, uh, Instagram managed to publish it to the platform. Again, I don't know how. Maybe they internally decode this video and like fix it, because actually moving this 1 byte is quite easy with even with this library that I mentioned. So like no magic here. Maybe they can do it themselves. That's why. Some of them they are like technical and they can actually fail your video itself, right? And it will not be published. It will cause some errors. So yeah, that's why like you need to experiment, and you need to find your way through it. So yeah, okay. I think last part of all of this is, let's say you managed to authorize a user. Let's say you managed to integrate publishing. Everything works smoothly, at least for your test users. Now you want to go to production, right? And this is where things go serious now, because now you need to prepare yourself for application review, okay? And when it comes to application review, here, as I mentioned, one thing that you need to do is, okay, features edit will be here once you edit, okay. So one thing is that you need to prepare explanation on how this works. Like, so there will be a list of permissions that you requested, which is basically similar to the list of scopes that you requested here, right? So it should be this list of scope. And then they will ask you for video. So they will ask you for text that will explain how this is used. And then there will be video, like screen recording of how it is used also. And in this video recording, you need to show exact place so that it's visible. For example, if you're talking about like content publishing, right? Content publish, the it should obviously show how you publish something and it appears in Instagram after this, right? Or for example, if it's in sites, you can show that, okay, you requested here, you go to Instagram, you click like, you go back to your application, and there's like here now. So this is obviously because of this scope. And you need to show it in as much details as possible and describe it in as much details as possible. Uh, it's hard because we are not reviewers. We are just like guys who passed these reviews sometimes back, and it was really tough because we got rejected due to multiple reasons, multiple times. I think that, for example, once we got rejected because I prepared separate videos for separate permissions. So for example, if it was like permission for basic details, I prepared the like video related to authorization, right? And then for content publish, I prepared video where we publish. And then I prepared video when we like get insights. And I thought this is the smart way because you need to upload video to each scope. It's like separate input form. And we got rejected, and I was asked to record kind of like one video showing the whole flow. And I think that I recorded like one long video showing everything end to end from the authorization to getting likes. And I think and I uploaded the same video to all these scopes and it worked, right? So you never know. For me, it sounds strange. I think it also depends on like who is your reviewer as usual, and like it's very like subjective. It's not something that I can tell you how to do, obviously. So for us, what they asked was like this video showing end-to-end flow, right? From my perspective, it's not very like doesn't make a lot of sense because I would rather expect different videos for different scopes, but who knows. One thing that was also important is in your app settings, you also need, so you will also have to update all your business details. You need to have legal entity, you need to like blah, blah, blah. So your privacy policy. Yeah, of course, privacy policy, terms of services, you need to have these pages, and also user data deletion. You also need, as usual, it should be either callback or it should be like instructions. I think in our case, instructions worked. So in PostPulse, we have this. We have this privacy terms data deletion. Yeah, so this is like data deletion page, and on this page we just describe how to exercise this right to be like so for registered users, so this is like how you go delete account. For non-registered, so meta deletion requirements, blah, blah, blah. So this is like standard page. Just the page was enough, as well as like for privacy policy and terms and conditions. But again, you need to update all this information about your like data protection and so on. One important thing is that, so here website, okay, so site URL, so here it's very important in app settings basic, you need to add your type of like platform, let's say it's website, and you need to add or update instructions, okay? And here you need to prepare very detailed step-by-step guide how to test your application. And guys, it's very important because you need to prepare the login for the like full thing. So one thing that it was like long description that we made, right? So you take it seriously and like spend time and prepare really like detailed step-by-step guide how it can work for them. So I can tell you like story how it worked for us. So in the beginning, like 1 year ago when we started in PostPulse, we had just magic link login. So how it was is that you enter your email, right? And then you go to like you receive link to login to your email. So we described in the instructions that basically you need to use any email, right? And then you need to go to, and it will work, right? Uh, they could not use probably their internal Facebook emails because maybe Magic Link was blocked by their internal policies from as the inbound inbox like message in their inbox. I don't know. So their like corporate email didn't work. Their personal email they didn't want to use for obvious reasons. Okay, so what? So they told us like prepare some I don't know link that we can navigate login will work for us, right? That's it. They don't want to. They will never try to like place them in your shoes and like assist you. No, if there is something off, it's immediate rejection, and now you need to figure out how to do it. And we told them, okay, so this is what we will do. Uh, we will create the disposable email for you. Let's say Yopmail, there's like yopmail.com that you can use. We will prepare a disposable email. So this is your disposable email. You can go to yopmail.com, and since this is disposable email, you don't need any passwords, so you can just use this email, go to Yopmail, and you will receive the magic link here. Rejected. No. So just you need to prepare like the way how I will login. I can like give us like a link that will work so that we can log in the application. I was like, okay, but no, we cannot do this because like Magic Link it's generated in runtime. So when you request, we generate random thing and this random code in your Magic Link, this is kind of token that works for you. We cannot just like no reject it, right? So in the end, we had this ugly stuff in our code that if email is like fbreview.mail.com or something like this, it doesn't matter for now because now we have another login with auth0, like Gmail login and so on, and OTP, so it doesn't matter for now. So if it's like fbreviewer.mail.com, then Magic Link token is always hard coded. It's never expired. Like it's not expiring. It's hard coded, so that you have the magic URL that allows you to log in PostPulse anytime. And we shared with them this URL. This is how it worked. Okay, so but and so many things, and the same, for example, like okay, then they need to authorize Instagram. So they will go to application, they will click Instagram, right? They need to log in using Instagram. And again, you need to prepare for them dummy user that they will be able to use because you need to share with them credentials that they will be able to use to log in. Also, they are working in Instagram, so they could have helped with it a little bit, right? Because they removed the test users, so they still have this tab, but in fact, test users as the feature is deprecated. So I don't think that you can create test users, so it will work now. So yeah, but they deprecated this feature, so now you need to use real Instagram testers, which are real Instagram users, and they don't help you with this. So you need to prepare a test user. And if you will try to prepare a dummy user, Instagram will ban you because this is dummy user. And their algorithms will flag you and they will just like block you, and this is your test user that you need to like application review. So this is crazy. And this is just like our story. So I think I don't remember totally how many attempts did we have, but one thing that I do remember is that somewhere in the middle, so we had rejections, rejections, rejections. Somewhere in the middle, we had so many rejections that they put us on the hold, so we could not reapply for another month, if I'm not mistaken, or 21 days or something like this. So huge for like startup. It's like the whole lifespan basically. So yeah, we could not reapply for another 21 day or like months. Then we had one more rejection, I think, and then only we passed the review. It was I don't remember so like total number of attempts, but I do remember that we were like cooled down. And we were not allowed to apply for another month or 3 weeks. And yeah, and then maybe one more rejection or something like this, and then we got approved. So this is crazy. I cannot give you any advices because I'm not part of their team. So I'm sharing with you our experience how it went. So again, My only advice: prepare accurate descriptions, prepare accurate accurate videos describing end-to-end flow. If you can add captions that will mention something, it's perfect, I think, right? Spend time on these app settings, app settings. You got it right. So instructions, because these instructions will be used by a reviewer. So if your video is approved, let's say, so first things first, you can be rejected because of the video, right? I think this is first step that they do, right? If your video is kind of okay, they will go and click everything themselves manually. And how they click, they go step by step in your instructions. So make it as detailed as possible, right? So like no assumptions that they will uh, do something for you. No, just if they need to paste email and password, mention it here, right? Ideally, URLs, like no assumptions, no explanation, just they should be able to click it step by step, and that's it. So this is only advice that I can give, right? And again, now it's 1 hour 40 minutes video. I don't know if I will do any editing on this. I didn't expect it to take that long, but I'm really tired now, and I think still there are many things that maybe I'm missing that will come to my mind later, but maybe it will be like another video then. Again, we are always glad to see everyone in PostPulse. If you need publishing for your automation flow, we have Init and MakeNote. If you want to use it with your AI agent, we have MCP. If you want to use it in your application as the feature and you want to have it branded, we have white label integration so that you preserve your brand and you don't show PostPulse logo anywhere. It will work like if it was your publishing integration, but we manage everything on our site and you don't spend time on this. So we have different models for different cases. Don't hesitate, like message me, join us, and again, let's talk. So if there's anything we can help with in your journey with Instagram API. So yeah, good luck, happy publishing, and see you soon, I hope.